Knock on wood, but it appears that we might finally be getting some spring.
After feeling like summer was here about 6 times.
And then only to be sorely disappointed when the snowstorms continue to hit.
So much snow, yes. But we are happy about the weather, and even happier to be back with another great guest that we'll introduce here in a minute. As usual, you can find everything on the John Howard Society of PEI YouTube channel. John Howard Society of PEI.com is our website, and on our Facebook as well. We had a great set of podcast guests over the John Howard Week back in March, which feels like an eternity ago.
Yeah, I can't believe that was only last month.
Right? We're excited to kind of continue some of that theme there, the federal framework for the reduction to reduce recidivism, and dig in a little more on the health aspect, which I think is critical. So with that, I guess introduction-wise, as usual, I'm Josh Constantinou.
And as always, I'm Connor Mullen, president of the John Howard Society of PEI.
There we go. And now we'll turn it over to Hannah. Hannah, thanks for joining us. If you want to do a little introduction, we're excited to have you with us.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me. I'm Hannah. I'm the registered nurse at the Community Outreach Center Clinic in Charlottetown, PEI.
Welcome, Hannah. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks.
Yeah, so I guess if you could just give us a little bit of a background of, the different clinics that the Community Outreach Center has, and maybe a little bit about how those came to be and where they're at now.
For sure, yeah. So the Community Outreach Center Clinic started in December of 2023 by our lead physician, Dr. Ruben Stott, and he had the idea of bringing primary care access to people experiencing homelessness or those with mental health and addictions in the community. So we operate clinic. There is nursing on site Monday to Friday, but we have 2 doctors' clinics a week where either a doctor or nurse practitioner is present to provide primary care. We also have 1 psychiatry clinic a week. And then we do pop-up clinics at a few different locations, including one in Summerside to try and provide access to those in Summerside. And then we also bring in some clinics. So we also support with vaccines access and stuff at the center as well.
Awesome.
How big is your team out there, Hannah?
We have grown to have 3 NPs, 3 doctors, a clinical social worker, and a psychiatrist. And then we work very closely with the rest of the team at the center. So all of the case managers and the mental health team as well.
Wow, that's excellent.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe you don't have these numbers, but sort of in an average week or month, how many people are you seeing in your clinics?
Typically, in the last few months have been kind of our busiest months in existence of the clinic, the last 3 months. And in those months, we're supporting about 100 unique individuals, and we're doing probably about 360 visits a month.
Wow.
Jesus.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's a lot of people.
Yes, it has gotten busy for sure.
And so the people that you're seeing, Hannah, or I guess the idea behind bringing kind of the primary care to the community is that you're seeing people who don't have any other type of primary care that they're able to access?
Yeah, we're seeing individuals with no primary care provider or individuals whose primary care provider is quite a distance for them to travel to. And then we also open it up to those people who are just really struggling to make certain appointment times at locations offsite as well. So if we're just getting someone into the routine of attending appointments, we'll open it up to those guys as well.
That's great.
Nice to have all that flexibility with so many people out there either not having a doctor or not being able to get in to see their doctor.
For sure, yeah. And one of our biggest goals was to reroute emergency room visits too, which we've done quite successfully within our population. So even when we don't have a doctor on site, we always have someone on call who can support for any sort of like prescribing or anything like that that's needed.
That's excellent. Yeah, and then I guess that kind of gets into one of the first sort of substantive points that I wanted to kind of discuss with you, Hannah, is that something that I've always sort of heard anecdotally or read is that one of the biggest societal expenses, if you will, of homelessness is that there is often a lot of accessing of emergency medical services by that population. So with having the clinics set up as you do, have you noticed again like a steep decline in emergency room visits? And kind of what do you attribute to this primary care model being able to cut down on those emergency room visits that would have been happening before?
Yeah, I think we've seen a substantial decrease in visits. When we were pulling some stats on just a few of our clients, we had one individual who accessed the emergency room in 2023 over 180 times in that year. And then once he started being supported by the clinic, 2024, it was closer to like 85 times. And that was primarily for mental health concerns. And this year he has accessed the emergency room once, and it was when he had a heart attack. So that client alone has decreased visits over 180 times in a year. And that's just one individual. So that's been a huge part of it. I think so much of the success of decreasing those visits is just being very accessible to the population and just providing non-biased care. A lot of them are pretty hesitant, so they kind of wait until there's a point that they need to go to the emergency room to access care. But we've kind of been able to build that rapport with those individuals so they access it a bit sooner, as well as just having someone on site. They can kind of come see us, see if we think they actually need to go to the emergency room or if that's something that we can handle in clinic. And typically, for the most part, it is something that we can handle in clinic. So,
Great.
Wow.
And like you say, the sort of a key piece of that is not just that you're there, but that you've built a relationship with a population that can be sort of untrusting of a lot of institutions or fear the judgment, and that you say that you provide this care on a completely non-judgmental basis.
Yeah, that's such a huge part of it. And it is a population that can be difficult to work with because they haven't slept well and they haven't eaten properly in a few days often, and that can contribute to them having escalated behaviors. And I think that contributes to the bias that other people provide. But really, when you take the time to just sit down and learn why they're frustrated instead of taking their frustration at baseline, it really makes a huge difference. And our clinic has been able to provide a lot of support, and using the outreach center and the case managers and the other staff there and the rapport that they've built to be able to kind of connect us with those individuals has been a huge part of it as well.
What's interesting about that too is it's almost turned into, instead of being so responsive, like a prevention strategy, because now the folks, like you said, instead of waiting until, it's so extreme that they absolutely must seek medical attention, they're willing to come see you when a problem begins and catch it early in the process, which probably is good for them and the system.
Yeah, for sure. We're able to catch stuff a lot earlier, and there's individuals who haven't accessed care in 10 plus years. So for them to just get in and get screening, blood work, and that kind of stuff is huge, and it can make a world of difference in their healthcare for sure.
Wow, that's great. And do you find, as you say, sometimes a lot of what you're seeing is, just the circumstances people are living in. They're not able to regularly eat, and when they do eat, it's maybe not nutritious or healthful food. They haven't slept in a while. Do you find that sometimes even the prevention can come down to as much as providing someone with just like a good meal?
Yeah, like one of the things our clinic has been able to do is we try to provide meal replacement supplements when needed. So we do a lot of boost prescribing. We also do a lot of vitamins and that kind of stuff to kind of counteract some of the stuff that they're missing in nutrition. And then we work as much as we can to kind of get them healthy ideas within what they're offered. But there are some barriers in that for sure. But we work with them as much as we can to kind of guide them in that direction.
Hannah, I'm kind of interested to know, some of what you're talking about in terms of like the, let's say sort of the physical health issues. You're able to catch things early, provide people with, prescriptions, do blood work, that kind of stuff. What do you see working, or kind of what's the purpose of the psychiatric clinic that you're running there? Do you have that same kind of method, or is this more of a, I think this person maybe needs to be referred to, Hillsborough Hospital or something along those lines?
There are definitely cases in which we cannot deal with in-house, but having direct access to psychiatry has opened up the door to so much because we have someone that we can ask questions to all of the time. Our psychiatrist is amazing for that, and he gets people in pretty quick. And these are individuals who would typically have to be seen in EDSSU or would be on wait lists for 2+ years. So a huge part of connecting them for mental health and getting them the proper diagnoses is then you can work on the rest. Like if they start a medication that helps them with whatever mental health condition they're experiencing in that moment, then you can kind of work on the housing and you can work on moving them along in the system, where if they're struggling with schizophrenia or bipolar disorder and they're super unregulated, have no medication and nowhere to live, it's really hard to move them on in the system without that connection to healthcare. And psychiatry has been a huge part of that.
Absolutely. And so again, I guess that kind of moves on to the next thing. We're talking about the pillars of the federal framework to reduce recidivism, and obviously one of those, and a very important one of those, is health. Because like you say, when people are dealing with those types of issues, very difficult to move them on in the system towards housing or whatever else they're working on. Over the years that you've been doing these clinics, have you seen those kinds of successes where when you're able to get people regulated, get their health in a good spot, that they're able to then, avoid criminal justice involvement, or they're able to get housed and kind of move their life forward in a more positive way?
For sure, yeah. There are quite a few clients that we've been supporting from a mental health perspective that the case managers were kind of concerned that they might never fit into a specific category of housing that would work for them. And since connecting them with proper mental health supports and taking care of their physical needs, we've housed some of our most acutely ill individuals. And this year was actually, thanks to the work of the case managers, one of the most successful years for housing individuals that they've had. And they said that a big portion of that has been able to connect their individuals with the clinic and with health and with mental health supports.
Great.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting point, because you kind of, sometimes it's a little bit, people look at one or the other, but I think it's a two-pronged approach of people sometimes look at like, how do we create more supportive or transitional housing? And then other people say, like, how do we get somebody to a state where they might fit into the housing options we have? And I think it's kind of interesting to think about it as like both happening at the same time. So while we're expanding our supportive and transitional options, there still needs to be some support from folks like you and in the clinic there to get people to a place where they can function even within those models.
Yeah, and one of the other gaps that we've been able to fill is when clients consent to us passing on medication lists and that kind of stuff, when they do go into the jail, then I am in communication with their team to make sure that they have an idea of what meds they're on and if there's any pending investigations. And then as long as they consent on the way out too, she'll let me know when they're being discharged and kind of give me an idea of what meds they're on at that time. And we've been able to get a couple people right in to see psychiatry upon discharge so that they're supported immediately out of incarceration.
Wow, that's great. And great that you are able to get people in so quickly. Obviously, the accessibility of healthcare on PEI is a significant issue and a bit of a political hot potato. So, hats off to you for being able to get a vulnerable population in to get those services so quickly.
For sure, yeah. And we definitely highlight the fact that by allowing our clients to access those services, we're taking away from the other services that they would typically access. So then those services become more accessible for everyone else on the island as well.
Yeah,
exactly. And that's I think such an important thing that the public needs to understand. There can often be a bit of a stigma, about why are these people getting access to these services when I can't get access to these services? And I remember there being a comment by a member of the House a couple of years ago about complaining about emergency medical services being diverted to the outreach center and away from what I guess he considered more deserving, quote unquote, islanders. And I think it's really is important to drive home to the public to say, sort of as we talked about, sort of an ounce of prevention really is worth that pound of cure. That if you put a little bit of resources up front into this population, you're easing a significant burden on other services in the island that then make it easier for everyone to access.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, no, it does. It benefits everyone collectively.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. And that's interesting to hear about the correctional partnership too, because one of the things we had talked about when we had Rebecca from Health PEI on about mental health and addictions is trying to create that continuity of care within the justice system and within institutions in general. So when people are going into an institution and then leaving that institution, and some of the challenges that there are going from community to institution and back. And so it sounds like you've started to create a pathway for folks that's been fairly successful.
Yes, we it's relatively new, but it's been working so far.
That's great.
Fingers crossed for you.
And Hannah, and maybe this is not something that you're able to kind of deal with in your role or kind of with, the specific powers that you have through the department you work for. But obviously dealing with the population at the outreach center, you're going to be dealing with a lot of addiction issues. Do you see any, benefits to like a harm reduction approach? Is there any sort of harm reduction activities that you're allowed to engage in with populations dealing with addiction issues?
Yeah, there definitely are. I mean, Peers Alliance does a really amazing job on PEI of taking on like all of the harm reduction supplies, and we're lucky to have all of that on site. So we don't really have to do much of that in clinic. A lot of the harm reduction we would do would just be mostly like reassuring people that we're not really here to judge them based on their substance use and stuff, and then just educating them on ways that they could maybe do a little bit better with that. Sometimes like we don't do any sort of like prescribing or anything like that, but just like some education on, or we have smoking cessation on site as well and stuff like that. But Peers Alliance primarily would take on most of the safe supplies and that kind of stuff on site.
And do you provide, would this maybe be more Peer Alliance, like do you provide people with Narcan and things like that?
Yeah, we have Narcan in clinic, and then we have Narcan in multiple places available on site as well for clients to take. And then there's always some accessible just outside of the main entrance.
Oh, excellent. So, Hannah, in the time that you've been doing this, what do you see as kind of do you see that there's a greater complexity to kind of the physical and mental health needs of this specific population that you're dealing with as compared to the general population? Or do you see it's really kind of the same issues and it's just more a matter of degree? Maybe what I mean by that is, you say with the population you'd be dealing with at the outreach center, that you say they tend to kind of let the issues go until they actually absolutely have to deal with them. So when you take this sort of preventive approach, do you see that it's really just kind of the same health issues, but you're just able to catch them a little bit earlier during your approach? Or do you see that it is more significant, more complex issues that you're dealing with?
Definitely more significant, more complex, like individuals experiencing homelessness for a lot of chronic health conditions are 2 to 4 times more likely than the general population to experience things like COPD, diabetes, or cardiovascular disease. So it is definitely more prevalent. I would say the other thing is a lot of them don't see a doctor very often. So sometimes we get them into an appointment and we are seeing them for 4 different ailments because it might be the only time that they're going to be in a doctor's office for years. And there is quite a few individuals who will leave things for a long time just because either they have a hard time identifying their needs or they're too scared to access care, or they're scared that they'll get judged for their substance use. So a lot of the time it can be quite more advanced, I would say, than sometimes you would find in the normal population or those not experiencing homelessness. But I would say, yeah, there's definitely a lot more chronic health conditions as well as advanced aging. A lot of them have accelerated aging due to environmental exposures, lack of sleep, and poor nutrition. So that definitely contributes as well.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned the advanced aging. That's something that we had been kind of looking into as well, because we had heard, like, from John Howard nationally, there's a lot of work in the justice space, and they had noted, about a 10-year acceleration in age. And people of like 50 or 55 had the health of somebody that was 60 or 65 when they had been incarcerated.
Yeah, people people who are incarcerated for long periods of time, like lifers or other people in the federal system, are generally seen to have to age about 10 years beyond their kind of biological age. Yeah.
And so we had wondered, is that comparable within the homelessness sector of people who have been chronically homeless for a number of years? And it sounds like on some level you're starting to uncover that to be the case.
Yeah, definitely. You would see that a lot in our population.
Yeah.
So Hannah, one thing I always when it comes to the community outreach center, no matter what's going on there, there's always the issue of community pushback. Have you experienced or seen sort of community pushback from the community about your services being offered, or if you can talk about this, pushback from within your own profession about going out and offering these services in this type of community environment?
Yeah, I mean, when I started at the center and people would ask me where I would work, a lot of people would be like, "Oh, did you choose that, or is that where they placed you?" And they'd be quite surprised when I said that that's where I chose. A lot of people I think they see a lot what's in the social media, and that influences so much of it. And I think one of the biggest things that I always offer people is I offer to bring them down for a tour, see what we're about, see what we offer, see all of the services that we do, because it makes such a huge difference once you're in there and you see the clients interacting with everyone. But we definitely do get a lot of pushback, even like sometimes just within the healthcare system, trying to book people for appointments, calling on their behalf, that kind of thing. We get some judgments there. But I think that the center has gotten kind of used to that, and it's more something that we challenge now, and we continue to advocate for our clients. And a lot of services have also started referring people to us because they know that we can really help individuals within this population. So it's a mix of both. I think in the last little while, you've seen a lot of mindsets starting to change. And when we've been able to share success stories and all of the things that we've been doing, I think you see a lot more positive within the community now. But I think there will always be some pushback of just, why is this population accessing these services when not everyone gets to?
Well, you know what, that good for you for taking that on. I know it's not easy to work in that kind of field where we all know it's not easy to work in the field where you don't always necessarily have the most sympathetic clientele, and there can be a lot of judgment and pushback on the work that you're doing. But good for you for sticking it out and advocating for your clients. And I'd say it's in no small part due to the work that you guys are doing that we are starting to see that change in mindset.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So one thing I also wanted to ask again, and this probably just, very, very simple thing, but I wonder if it's something that does help a lot of people, how often can you see, I'm sure you see it all the time, people come in, the weather's bad, it's raining, people have one set of clothes, they're walking around in soaking wet clothes and socks all day. How beneficial can it be to people's health to have, people donating clean, warm clothes for people to wear?
It can definitely be very beneficial. And actually, one of our physicians took it on upon herself to kind of start collecting shoes and that kind of stuff to have in clinic and socks for our clients. One of the things that we noticed is they leave with such a big smile on their face if you can make sure that they have clean, warm, dry clothes when they're heading out. So those donations are huge for our population, and it makes a world of difference. And to be able to send them off in clean clothes really does help. I know we have limited men's stuff available typically, but when we do get those donations, people hop right on them.
All right. So everybody listening, spring cleaning is coming up. Go through your closets, go through your drawers, any good condition, quality clothing, especially men's clothing that you don't need to wear anymore. Take it to the outreach center. It could make a world of difference for somebody.
Yes. Also give us a call. We have staff who are willing to come and do pickups around Charlottetown as well for any donations that are available.
Excellent. There you go.
That's great. You had mentioned that you've expanded to other sites like Summerside. How has that been trying to kind of move off of where everything is so co-located to other sites where you have to do a little more of a pop-up or satellite style?
Yeah, it's definitely been a bit of a learning curve. I think it's highlighted how important it has been for us to be able to communicate with case managers and have them assist us with getting clients to follow-up appointments, picking up their meds and all of that kind of stuff. Because we have them on site in Charlottetown, where in Summerside, we don't always have the case managers working or coming directly with them to their appointments. So it's been a bit of a challenge just to like learn all of the supports that we have in Charlottetown and how to bring those to Summerside with us. So, yeah.
Yeah. So you're really trying to kind of replicate that process in another community where the folks have to be external instead of internal.
Yeah, and one of the benefits of being in Charlottetown is we're on site at the Community Outreach Center, where Park Street Shelter's right there, and a lot of the other shelters are within walking distance or have direct access to us. And in Summerside, it's operating out of the Mental Health and Addictions Wing at PCH, so it's not on site for any individuals, so clients also have to travel there, which has been another adjustment as well.
And have you found the site being located at PCH change the dynamics at all versus being in kind of a community setting where people may feel a little more welcomed or comfortable?
Yeah, it does a bit. It's a little more medical, where our setting's a little more on the community side. So again, it's stepping into that medical setting that a lot of people have some hesitation with, as well as just like where we are, people are there all day, so you can check in with them, and if they miss their appointment but you have time later, you can grab them and still see them, where that's kind of limited in Summerside.
Interesting.
And when you do travel to Summerside, how do you get the word out to the homeless population that you're here on these days? Like how do people know to access your services when you're there?
So typically we work with the shelters. So like Winter Street Shelter, Summerside Emergency Shelter. We do some work with the mental health and addictions as well. So we'll communicate with their case managers or kind of their leads, let them know when we're coming, and they'll send referrals to our clinic, and then we book them in and communicate back when they're scheduled, and then they help coordinate that with the client.
Great. And do you do any sort of mobile healthcare anywhere outside of Charlottetown and Summerside?
No, that's something that we would like to eventually expand to. We haven't gone really outside of Summerside or Charlottetown yet, but it would be something that we would like to do to make sure we're providing care to all of those populations.
Excellent.
Yeah, it's interesting to start to think about kind of like what would a more rural outreach type focus look like, and how could that look? I know there's been some considerations about kind of mobile healthcare and what that could look like when the healthcare was brought to the people, whether that's to a shelter or an encampment or wherever they might be located. Yeah, just kind of wondering what your thoughts are going down that path in the future.
Yeah, I think that going to the people limits a lot of the barriers, especially within this population that may not have transportation everywhere that they need to go. So it would bring that to them. Having like more of a mobile unit in which you could actually perform assessments or like take supplies would be ideal. And then you could go right into those encampments. You could go to like some of the smaller communities that might just have a smaller population as well. Or less resources, because a lot of the ways our clients are connected is by being connected to another resource or another organization. So some of those communities that have fewer resources you'd be able to connect with those individuals too.
Right. Yeah.
So Hannah, just kind of maybe gonna go back to a little bit of a background question here, but what inspired you to choose to work in this setting?
Yeah, so I was actually a student who was the first group of students placed at the Community Outreach Center at the Old Curling Club in the fall of 2023. And I was in my fourth year applying for my preceptorship, and I really thought that I wanted to be a pediatric nurse. And my partner and I were thinking of moving to Ottawa or Halifax to work at one of the children's hospitals after graduation. But once I was placed at the center, the staff and the clients and everyone were just so welcoming, and it was such a unique population to work with that I had never really experienced anywhere else. And it kind of drew me back. So I went north for my preceptorship and did my preceptorship with Indigenous Services Canada. And then when I returned back to PEI upon graduation, I sent a message to the person who supervised me as a student there and said I was interested in working. She invited me in for a conversation within a week, and then I took on like a nurse position as well as some of the more administrative duties. originally, and then I took over the lead RN in January of 2025.
Wow,
That's so cool.
excellent.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's kind of speaks to some of this, right? Some of the people, or I think most of the people that have sort of negative perceptions about the community outreach center or about working there or asking why would you do that, they just don't they don't know, right? This is something so far removed from their experience they can't contemplate it. But once you get in there and you meet the people and the clients, and like you said, Hannah, they're so welcoming and kind, and you can see what you're doing having a real positive impact for people. I think that it really changes a lot of people's minds. And so I think, going back to something you said earlier about people who have those perceptions, and you say, well, why don't you come down and I'll show you around and introduce you to people, right? I think there's no better way than that to change hearts and minds.
Mm-hmm. For sure. And I think my perspective changed so much. Like when I was a student it was when everything was in the height of the hate on social media and everything else. And it was just going in there, I was scared. And then I started to meet people and I learned that none of these individuals are that much different than I am. They've just been through so much. And now I walk down the street and I know everyone's first name and pretty much their whole backstory. And it really helps me understand why they are where they are and what got them to this point. And I think like other people realizing that is a huge part of just this population having more empathy.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's great that you took that journey and took the risk to come in and be curious and explore, and turned out to be a good spot for you.
For sure. Yeah.
Did you have anything else you wanted to check in on, Connor?
I think that's really everything for me.
Yeah. I don't think there was anything else that we had kind of wanted to know about. Is there anything else you wanted to share about kind of the work that's going on there, or future expansion, or things that you're hoping to see in the future?
Yeah, I don't know. We're always growing. So I think that if you check in a year time, I think the clinic will be in a totally different place than we are now. But I think that's a really unique part about working there. And I really can't wait to see kind of how we progress in the future.
Yeah. And maybe more expansion to other communities, or setting up something a little more maybe permanent in Summerside will be part of the 2026 goals.
Yeah.
I know. So very excited to see where you guys go, and how you can continue to build upon the great work that you're doing.
For sure. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for spending some time with us, Hannah. We appreciate you jumping on and sharing all the great work that's going on there.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
All right. Well, thanks to our guests today, and thanks for everybody for listening. As we mentioned, you can find all of our podcasts here on the John Howard Society of PEI YouTube channel, on our website, and on our Facebook page. Shout out again to Hannah for jumping in, and thanks for everybody. Connor, anything you want to throw out there before we log off?
Yeah, just if anyone is interested in the John Howard Society of Prince Edward Island, or any of the work that we do, give us a call. Stop into the office anytime. Our staff are always willing and able to talk to people about the work. And if you're interested in volunteering, we're always looking for volunteers in any number of different roles. If anyone is interested in the board of directors, joining the board of directors, reach out, get you in touch. We're always, again, happy to talk to the people who are interested, and very happy to try and find a place for you in the organization. Please like our Facebook page, John Howard Society PEI. Again, like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Check out the podcasts. We have the archives of all our old podcasts on there, available to listen to at any time. And just reiterate, when you're going through your spring cleaning this year, any clothing that you find, please consider donating to the Community Outreach Center. Like Hannah said, you can call and they'll even come pick it up for you. But it's a good cause that can make a significant difference in people's lives.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Connor. Hannah, thanks.